in every line of work, I gotta be 100% genuine. In every line of work that I do, I'm like looking at what I'm helping people accomplish. And I'm just like, could I genuinely afford to do any of this if I wasn't the one who was working? Like, could I pay for myself as a trainer? Could I afford that house that I'm helping somebody purchase or somebody list? And the answer is usually no. And so it's just like one of those things where it's like, I get to see other people live that life. And because I get to see other people live that life, I feel like it almost feels like that's where I should be. Like I shouldn't be a part of like everything else. I shouldn't be a part of the average person, the average situation. I should be one of the outside looking in people.
You're listening to the Feed the Soul podcast. We're talking about tackling tough stuff, chasing dreams, and figuring out who we really are. Each episode ends with a word of advice or encouragement, a nugget of inspiration to empower you to dream big and take that leap of faith into the wild adventure of life. Welcome to the Feed the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Savion, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I am here today with Christian. With Christian. And Christian, usually I start off with like the appetizer right away.
Okay.
But when I have a guest, I like to have them introduce the space.
Okay.
See where we're at.
Yeah.
And because this is your space, tell us where we are today.
Today we are at the home office of Cherry Home Realty, brokerage that I work for. We got our space fully thought out by Tony and Gina Gomez, our head brokers. Got our Colzer's lounge over there in the corner with our bar. Big little desk for the big man, the big boss man right there behind us.
Desk.
Big and little simultaneously. Big energy, little space. And then we got our big logo right over there in the background as well.
When I walked in here, I was like, whoa, y'all need to come see this space. I mean, that's one of the things I want to talk about is home ownership.
Yeah.
I don't own a home, so this is going to be like a learning curve for me.
Have you ever?
No.
Well, we rented for a while from the property that my mom owns.
No. Yeah. So, but when did you know that you own the house?
You know, I think as a kid, I think you always feel some sort of ownership over something because you don't even understand the complexities.
What renting and owning. Yeah.
And so I think that when I was in that space, I always felt like it was never felt like I was living under anybody.
But you learned later that you were renting then owning.
I learned later, yeah. And I think it took me going through the rental process myself to realize, I don't own this. And there's a very different sentiment to owning something than there is to leasing it from somebody else. Yeah, absolutely.
He jumped the gun, y'all. Who are you? Like, who are you?
Mr. Rivera, man.
Just Mr. Rivera. So, giving the listeners a little appetizer. I call it the appetizer.
Sure.
A little sneak peek.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's almost a crazy question, but not because it's a crazy question, just because my answer feels so uncertain and ungrounded at times. I think that at the moment, I'm a personal trainer. I think I am a realtor representing buyers and sellers of properties, specifically residential properties. And I'm an artist. I write and record music. I'm working on being able to play an instrument so I can contribute more to the process of music production. But at the moment, really, my strong suit is writing and singing.
Writing, singing, learning an instrument to help with production.
Sure. Yeah, just to be able to eventually work on cultivating my own instrumentals, my own beats, my own everything. Just because I do feel like even though I lack the technical and physical ability to create music, I do have a concept of melody. I do have a concept of song structuring to a point where I'd eventually want to be able to just make that for myself and rely on little other people as possible.
Yeah. So I was just talking with someone yesterday about music.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift just came out with a new album.
Yeah.
And they were like, what if Taylor Swift and Beyonce did something, a little collab like Beyonce and Miley? And I was just like, I don't see that for them.
You don't love that for them.
I don't see that for them. And so I thought about you and this conversation of like, what would you be? Like, would you be, because Taylor is a big songwriter.
Sure.
Then you have people, I mean, Beyonce, I guess, does both, but she's also had songs or Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
There's been songs written for her, but huge performer. Mm-hmm. You would be both.
I would hope to, I mean, I do take vocal lessons.
Oh.
So I would hope to eventually be at a place where I feel like vocally I am as capable as I am lyrically.
Yeah. Okay. And what's the instrument that you're learning?
At the moment, I'm learning the guitar, and I'm also learning keyboard.
Yeah. Okay. And then you want to do the producing. Is that like DJ or is like, because I think everything you can do on a computer.
Man, you know what's so crazy is that the ability to make music is more accessible than it's ever been. It's easier than it's ever been to do as far as, again, just, I mean, not to be even redundant, just the access to the equipment. I mean, there was a point where you really had to know somebody to know somebody to know somebody to get into a place where you can even have the ability to touch a piece of equipment like that. And now it's just as easy as buying something off of Amazon, getting it set up in your house, and then watching YouTube videos to learn it.
My life. Welcome to my podcast show. Yeah. Where I'm so grateful for YouTube to be able to learn how to set up things, to have a podcast, to learn how to set up a camera. Am I an expert at it? No.
Yeah.
And do I want to be? Still thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what the crazy part is that you don't have to be, and that it is a choice.
Yes.
And you could just honestly just do this and it's just you. You could just be you. Whereas before you had to be an expert to even get the opportunity to be yourself.
Or I pay someone to come with me to set it up and have a better camera. But my Venmo is
take donations.
Listen. Okay, what would be your style of music?
I would say at the moment the most accurate category would be alternative R&B, just because I do have elements. I would say R&B is the base, but I would say I do have elements of rock in there. I do have elements of rap. I do have elements of indie and pop. And so it's just really being able to integrate those other things so that I'm not limiting myself creatively ever. I never go into a song with the concept of, I really want to make an R&B song. I just go into I go into a song like, I want to make a song that I like. And I want to just let it take me where it goes and let it write itself almost.
All right. The wheels are turning in here. The wheels are turning.
Where are they going?
Is alternative or alt R&B already a genre?
It is. I mean, I think on if you look it up on Spotify right now, I think you'll find that whole setup structured playlist that's within the app.
Okay, so you didn't come up with that.
Did not come up with that at all. Okay. Nope. I would say where it kind of started too. I mean, if you think about like alternative styles or versions of R&B, I mean, that kind of started with people like, and this might even age me a little bit as far as like making me sound too young, because there might be somebody who's even older than that I didn't realize was doing versions of alternative R&B, like Bryson Tiller. I mean, that trap soul concept, that's just trap R&B. It's an alternative version of R&B. And so it's one of those things where it's like people have been doing that for like a really long time, and it's gotten to the point where now you're seeing people like Steve Lacy, you're seeing people like Frank Ocean do alternative forms of R&B. You're seeing Daniel Caesar do alternative versions of R&B, and the list goes on.
So are they invited to like the BET Awards?
That's a good question. I'm not sure the answer to that question.
Well, does alt or R&B fall? I'm assuming that falls into.
I mean, I think in the Grammys,
because there's Grammys, right?
The Grammys is a version of that,
right? But
I know it's a completely different story.
That's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you want to take your music?
Man, you know what's so crazy is that I at one point wanted to really just be able to establish a name that was like a larger than life thing. And now I realize, just off of watching the experiences that other people who are actually famous have, and growing up and being able to mature with that concept, I'd be really just be happy to show up somewhere and people come to see. And it doesn't even have to be big. It just has to be consistent. The energy's got to be good. And I just want to feel completely comfortable flourishing in whatever I do, you know? And if I can bring in some revenue and make that a revenue stream, I mean, even better.
Heard. And that would be like small venue.
I think the connectivity is just better there.
Yeah.
I think like, you know, just the ability to be able to connect to the people who are in front of you emotionally.
Yeah.
They feel like they can access you as well. Is just, it's a commodity that you're not going to be able to accomplish anything larger than that. And I'm not saying that I'm against that, because nobody's ever been like, oh, I got too big, you know, but at the same time though, I think people who have gotten to a place where they have gotten maybe quote unquote too big from other people's perspectives, have been able to maybe go back to the roots and appreciate the value of small space, people with some good energy.
Yeah.
And that you can identify every single one of them.
Okay. If we keep it local, because this is all about keeping it local, at least this season. Yeah. What would be a venue in Milwaukee or the greater Milwaukee area that you would like desire to play?
Well, actually, I just was used as a model for my barber in like a promotional event at Turner Hall. I was on stage for that, and as I was looking on the stage, getting my haircut, getting my fade, getting everything.
Oh, you weren't modeling, like taking photos?
No. Yeah, I was the one getting my haircut
on stage.
And I was just looking out to the stage. I was seeing the bright lights in my face, and I could only see like a couple people in front of me, and then everybody else was kind of blurred out by like the light. I really was looking out there, and I was like, I could perform here. I could be here, and I could have this whole crowd of people be here listening for my music, not just watching me getting my haircut. You know?
You took a moment, you visualized it for yourself. Hey, any way you need to make it happen.
For sure.
So what is connectivity, small, like intimate? But yes, like Turner Hall is. I mean, there's even smaller, like Cactus Club.
For sure.
You know, would be super small, super intimate. When you get the lights in your face and you can't see your audience. Yeah. Like for me, connectivity is like we are making eye contact. Yeah. Like I see you, you see me. Yeah. But with that case, you don't. You see your first two rows, and then everyone else is like.
Well, you know, honestly, theoretically, when I was seeing faces in that front row, because, you know, it's a whole room of people. There's a bunch of tables set up where people are just standing, having drinks. And
was this a class?
It was not a class. It was like an event, a promotional event. So like there's a bunch of artists who are coming on stage, music's blasting. There's a DJ in the background and stuff like that.
I mean, and he's cutting your hair.
And he's cutting my hair and just, you know, lining me up and stuff like that, just doing his process that he always does, but just in front of a big crowd of people. And there's some people who are really paying attention, and there's other people who are kind of conversating amongst themselves. And everybody that I could see was paying good attention. So there was a connectivity there, ironically, even with the lights in my face, even with my ability to not see everybody. Sure. And I think that almost is like a great balance for me, because like I can not only, you know, have a venue that's big enough to hold a lot of people so they can connect to me, but I don't have the pressure of having to connect with every single one of them. I could really just connect with the people who are right in front of me, and hopefully vicariously have that live for everybody in the back as well.
Yeah. I mean, because even like at a concert, when folks are in the back, they're like, they were looking at me. Yeah. It's like, they can't see you. Yeah. I promise. They can't see you. Yeah. But I'm glad you had that moment where you even felt like the artist was looking at you.
Well, I think it's just like a full circle moment, isn't it? Because I mean, most of the time people who are listening to your music can't see you either, but they can feel you. And so that's just, it's coming right back to that point.
I wasn't ready for all that this morning. I wasn't ready for all that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a trade-off, and we just take turns with it. That's really all it is.
Okay. How old are you?
25.
Yeah. You're very mature. Where did that come from?
You know, I think it came from having to, honestly, just being too emotionally aware at a very young age. I think that not matured me. At first, it wasn't maturity. I think it just aged me at first. And, you know, those two things have different connotations.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And I think it's just now starting to turn itself into maturity. But it wasn't that all the time. I think it just recently was manifested through more negative experiences to the point where I'm like, and I feel like it's always negative experiences, right? That make you feel like I have to make a change, and develop. And if I don't, then I'm going to falling further and further behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's, living is moving. And so that's one thing that I've always tried to keep up with, and never let myself get too stagnant or too complacent.
It could be a negative experience. I think that there's also experiences that force you to grow up. So when you move into like a manager role,
Sure.
like from here, you move to the next level. Like I have to kind of fill the role. And a lot of times that's in like we're in corporate America.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to fit this role that is expected of you that comes with the title. And I think you can mature through that as well, which can be a positive experience. Sure. You're very close with your family.
Yeah.
So again, assuming that you didn't have to like raise a sibling.
No, but I will tell you that, it's so crazy because I feel like I grew up with the concept of like, being a guy is hard because you don't always get to express yourself emotionally. But that, as I got a little older and more aware, more conscious of other people's perspectives, that started to change to where it's just hard being grown. It's just being grown woman, man, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really just hard because I got to watch my mom not really have anybody to talk to about certain things that she was struggling with and going through, and coming to me because I'm just literally the only person who she could trust with information that maybe it wouldn't be used against her. Maybe she wouldn't be judged. She wouldn't be criticized. And so I had to live with pretty heavy information from a very young age. And so maybe that matured me as well. Yeah. And yeah, it just gave me maybe a wider perspective than a kid needs, but maybe it set me up to have that same, almost pre-developed mindset as a person who's a young adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're holding it, but it's like how I need to process this as well.
So what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that's how I matured. No, I don't. Because to have information like that at a young age and you don't know what to do with it. Yeah. I mean, I did have that on a different level.
For sure.
As I talked to with another, like just actually in the last episode with Santana, we talked about like parents are parents.
Yeah.
We weren't on that friend level or at a level that the parents were sharing things like that with us.
For sure.
And it's really interesting when they do. I mean, it's like, hey, whatever. Like if that's your parenting style to have those conversations, I think it does allow space in the future and even in that present time for the kid to go to the parent and go, this is what's going on in my life. Whereas the way that I grew up was like, I got to talk to a friend. I got to talk to my sibling.
Yeah.
I don't go to my parents
for sure
with this information, unfortunately. And now I think, and I process, I think we're both adults here. I think I can come to you with this information now and feeling mature enough to do so. But we weren't rushed into maturing. Did you feel like that was just a role or something that happened for you? Or is that something that probably wasn't intentional?
No, I don't. And I don't think it ever is. I think, by the time my mom was 25, she had already had me for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't have children. I don't plan on having children soon. And so I just think that it is, to a certain extent, I imagine myself at 21, 22 having a kid. It is still like a kid having a kid. You know what I'm saying? And so there is no right or wrong answer as to how you go about that, because there's nobody teaching you in the first place.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think it ever is intentional. But and actually, you know what? I don't think that I was rushed either, because even though I was given access to certain realities.
Oh, I like the way you said that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I really still had the ability to grow up with the privileged mindset of being a kid, and, we were broke at certain times, like really broke. And I had no idea because that's how good of a mother my mom was. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I was rushed with certain emotional information, but I was kept safe in a tangible way, in a structural way, and in a way that's visible And so there was a balance, I think. And I think that it just took me a long time to process the balance of that. But, I feel like we're getting closer and closer to it. Wow. It was just something that I got a head start on.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, we were forced into being an adult, I would say.
Yeah.
I remember there was one summer, we all had jobs, so we were at least 16.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom or our parents were like, all right, each of you has a bill to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So for the summer, I was in charge of the water bill. I know I might have made 2 months or 3 months, but make sure it's on time. If we didn't have online bill, paying the bills or online, I had to take it down to the water, whatever it's called, to the city. Checks. I wrote that water bill, and learned how to be an adult, kind of in that sense, and always had a cell phone bill. As soon as we got a cell phone, you paying your own bill. Yeah, it was kind of wild.
Now, in retrospect, did that feel like a good thing for you developmentally?
Developmentally, yes.
Okay.
I think that we still had balance.
Sure.
It was still kicked out the house to go, will y'all go to the movies? Will y'all go to the park?
Yeah.
Can y'all just play outside?
Do something.
Yeah. Because you in my hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and make sure you pay that water bill. It was this weird. Yeah. But
that's real though, isn't it? I mean, that's life. It's go have your fun, but
that's
take
true.
care of your responsibilities.
That's true.
Because you still have those.
Yes.
But I also don't want to limit you from having experiences.
The work and play.
Yeah.
Do you think you have both?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
For sure. I think that's one thing I've done a good job of. Mm-hmm. Whether, at the end of the year when I'm looking at W-2s and 1099s, whether that means that I'm looking at that, I'm like, God damn, I killed it this year. I can look back on the year and not feel like I was struggling and really concentrate on the memories that I made and the relationships that I fostered in that time. And that's a privilege.
Yeah. I always push for people to travel if you have means to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Milwaukee. We have festivals. Yeah. There's music. There's always something going on. Yeah. And being able to, I mean, even if it's just going to the beach and just hanging out.
I just did that on Monday. I literally, I was like, you know what? I could book this whole night of, at the beginning of the week, I always book out my whole week for my training schedule for, showings and everything like that, really just kind of segmenting my time. And I was like, you know what? It's a beautiful day. I'm not scheduling anything today. And I think that that's one of the privileges of the line of work that I'm in, the lines of work I can just say that one day where it's no, it's way too beautiful out. I'm not working today. Yeah. I'm just going to go to the beach. I'm just going to decompress and do nothing.
And for you to call that privilege is, I think, also mature awareness.
Yeah.
To know that I don't have to constantly work to make ends meet. Yeah. I can take this evening and relax.
Yeah.
Totally privileged. Okay, but why do you have so many jobs?
I just don't think I can sit still like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I can. I'm just, I've never been and I don't mean to call anybody else this, but I just never felt like I was capable of being a one-dimensional person. I felt like I needed multiple pieces of identities to contribute to one whole one. And maybe that's a deep rooted thing of me feeling like I can't lock in and focus to one thing because I'll just feel like there's holes or there's areas that I need to fill. Yeah, that's just naturally what has come to me. I feel like I've always had multiple interests at one time, and I've never wanted to limit myself to just one of them. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things where I feel like eventually you're going to want to have that moment where you look back and you be like, did I do all I could do?
All that I could do.
And you hope the answer is yes. And so that's, I think, what I'm maybe in a microcosm trying to accomplish, and just get to a point where long-term, that's what it is.
Okay. So it's not right now figuring out what exactly you want to do for a career. And I think you mentioned that with music.
Sure.
But in doing music, do you still see yourself doing other things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if, that's the crazy part, is that even if I accomplished every wildest dream, I would just make more dreams.
Just facts.
I would just have new ones, I don't think you're supposed to stop.
No, you should always have dreams, but does it mean that it's income? Does it mean that it's a job?
You know what? I think that just goes right back to that conversation about, my family not being well off. My mom made it feel like it was. And now my mom is well off and she's doing really well because she just grinded like a lot of immigrants do. And it feels the exact same. It doesn't feel any different at all. And so I think that is one of the greatest privileges of my life, that the monetary gain from something has never been a motivating factor for me. It's because it never needed to be. It was never something that I was told you have to have or you won't survive, because I always had it. And so now that I need to earn it a little bit more and, strap up my own bootstraps and stuff like that, it's still not something that's the motivating factor. If it comes, it comes, as long as I'm able to do what I want to do and what I'm able to do what I love to do. That's the win.
So what you're doing right now for income is also things that you love to do.
For the most part, absolutely. There are certain things that I look at as safety nets, for sure. They all contribute as a team to the idea, to the concept, to the mission. And so some parts are less pleasant than others and less enjoyable than others. They're necessary. And so I don't look at it as like I still look at it as something that's contributing to the concept of me being able to do things that I love without having to focus on the money.
So I was just talking with my partner yesterday about this. Yeah. Because I was like, why have I always worked more than one job?
Yeah.
I'm on to like thinking like why do I have a podcast? Why do I dog sit? Why do I need to be doing all these other things, or do I have the privilege of just working this full-time job and being done? And he said, well, because we grew up poor, just to put it simply.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. This like financial mindset of like never having enough or that it's going to run out.
Yeah.
But we never did growing up. We always had what we needed.
Yep. Well, what's crazy is I, being in this industry of, buying and selling houses, you get to learn some of like the really interesting statistics about what is considered the minimal income that you can earn to be considered like middle class and to be able to purchase and afford the average cost of a property, and how the average income is not the same as the average cost of a property. And that, it's like, and maybe I even shouldn't be saying this, but I feel like in every line of work, I gotta be 100% genuine. In every line of work that I do, I'm like looking at what I'm helping people accomplish. And I'm just like, could I genuinely afford to do any of this if I wasn't the one who was working? Like, could I pay for myself as a trainer? Could I afford that house that I'm helping somebody purchase or somebody list? And the answer is usually no. And so it's just like one of those things where it's like, I get to see other people live that life. And because I get to see other people live that life, I feel like it almost feels like that's where I should be. Like I shouldn't be a part of like everything else. I shouldn't be a part of the average person, the average situation. I should be one of the outside looking in people. And so that's where I think that ties back into like why I can't just do one thing and focus on one thing as well, is because I'm just not meant to, I don't think.
Wow. Okay. When you were saying that, imposter syndrome came into my head.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that sometimes?
You know what? It's such a like stark mixture of humility and arrogance always with me. So sometimes it does, because the humble side of me is just like, wow, like how grateful I am to be where I am in certain areas, maybe the way I look, or maybe the way that, how creative I've gotten, or how talented I've gotten, or how successful I've gotten in a certain area. But then there's other times where it's like, no, I did that shit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, like I feel like an imposter, but at the same time, the work speaks for itself. There's a quote that I heard from a person that I revere for their ability, maybe not for who they are as a person, but for their ability and for their accomplishments. And he said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, there is no room for doubt or fear when you're working, when you're constantly working. So I don't think that there is enough room for me to genuinely look at my reflection and feel like an imposter, because I'm just always doing something to contribute towards the identity that I'm trying to see in myself. And so I just think that there's not enough room in my head to really linger with that feeling too long. Yeah.
Well, I wish at 25 I had.
Do you feel imposter ever?
Do I anymore? No. I did have a moment in time where I did, and I ended up then doing presentations on imposter syndrome and techniques and ways to get out of that.
Yeah.
When I was a resident director, most of the colleges or universities in which you are overseeing a whole residence hall, they have a master's degree and they require a master's degree. I did not have that. Folks are coming in with words or philosophies and all this stuff from higher education. And I'm like,
right.
I just know how to do this because I was a student, and there's just like pieces, but I did feel like, and one of my coworkers, she didn't have a master's, and we ended up doing a lot of research together, learning about this and finding ways to get over that hump.
Yeah.
And then presenting to other, university staff about that.
Explained it perfectly. You stopped downplaying your journey. To get to where you wanted to be, just because other people had a different journey.
Exactly. We came to the consensus of we're in this role for a reason.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at everything. If I got hired for this position, it was for a reason. Yeah. Whether our journeys to get there was the same or different, or the letters behind our name is different, we're still here for a purpose. And that is how I kind of do everything in life now.
Equity versus equality thing. Yeah. As long as we can all look over the fence, it doesn't matter what kind of box we're standing on.
That's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother thing.
For sure.
Let's talk about your work here.
Yeah.
As I told you before, I don't own a home. I've never owned a home. Yeah. I have always rented in my adult life.
Yeah.
And I've looked into it.
Yeah.
I've applied for that financial piece, looked at different houses and what I want. And I go, I know I should buy a house because this is what I've been told. I should buy a house because financially it just makes more sense. Right. But then I also think about how much money people still put into their homes, whether it's in renovating or whether it's fixing or replacing. And I'm like, the landlord does a great job at all of that.
You know what the landlord has that maybe a lot of the tenants that are under him don't have, or her don't have, is that landlord has money. It's really that simple, because the benefits of, the most simple level, the benefits of owning a property versus renting is the ability long term to get money back, to be able to make money, to build equity, right, in that property. But everybody says, when you're first starting a business, when you're first starting anything, you have to spend money to make money, right? Well, to spend money, you need to have money.
Okay, I'm not trying to be sold on a house right now.
No. Ironically, I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to not sell a property, but make people understand that, yes, you should buy a home. Eventually, it is a good long-term investment, but the only people who make money off of homes are people who already have money.
A home. Oh, who already have money
to be able to support that home over time. Because one thing that people don't come into the game understanding right away is that you're not just looking at, are you able to afford your house right now? Are you able to afford what it's going to be worth when that interest rate kicks in? And, a lot of people go into purchasing a home and can't afford it, and it just makes their financial situation that much harder. And so I think that there's values and there's trade-offs to everything. And like you said, the landlord does a great job of handling certain overhead things. But ownership on a more figurative level is a really important thing for somebody to be able to accomplish eventually, and to be able to understand and to be able to be present with, because it teaches you a responsibility that you would never otherwise learn. And I think that, I show a lot of rental properties alongside with a lot of just like properties that you've seen, people put a lot of love into. They've been in that property for 20 years and it's like, it's a love letter to their life, but they want to sell it now because they know that they can make money off of it because of the high demand and low supply that exists in our current market. And when you see those two differences, you really realize how differently fulfilled two different people can be. You'll see a property that's owned by somebody, and then you'll see a property that's almost just like that property, but it's rented out to tenants. And the states of those properties are so drastic. It's almost like unfathomable, like that these two properties at one point might have been worth the same, or at one point, or not even at one point, are still right next to each other. They could be in close proximity to one another, but one was taken care of and one wasn't. And that's because one felt like they had a responsibility over it and the other didn't feel that responsibility. And so I think that that's a privilege within itself, is being able to have a pride in something, and that pride lead you to be a more responsible person in the long run. So it's not just a financial long-term investment, it's a long-term investment emotionally, psychologically. It's something that at some point, if done correctly, can be very fulfilling.
That's true. There's a lot I want to do to my place that I rent now that I wish the landlord would do.
Yeah.
But I see that piece of, I just own it.
Yeah.
You live there. I don't live there.
Yeah.
Whatever you do to it, it is what it is. But eventually, like, maybe that person leaves and you have to bring someone else in.
Yeah.
And so now how do you sell to this renter the shithole that your last tenant just made, but.
And you gotta have the money to be able to invest into that property if you want it to sell for anywhere near a place that's going to give you a margin, and give you that net, give you that profit. Because it's the easiest time ever to be a seller right now, because again, there's not a lot of properties and there's still the same amount of people who are looking to buy one, and
there's not a lot of properties because people are just staying in there.
Are just staying. You're not selling, and as soon as that supply and demand hits, costs of things go up, and that limits the amount of people who are, capable buyers as well, and
buyers.
And there's again, and that's why I want to really emphasize the reality of the situation for certain people, because I do think that home ownership is one of the most important things you can accomplish in your life. But be ready for it, and be real with yourself. If you're a person who is all over the place mentally, you're going to be all over the place as a homeowner as well, for sure. And you can't at that point.
Was that just a nice way of putting something?
It's not. It's like all over the place can mean so many different things.
Okay. Because I came up with a lot of things.
Yeah, and it can mean so many different things. And I think if you want stability, you got to have achieved some sort of stability in your life before that. It's just, it's stability, something you just build off of, right? You don't create a foundation and, just hope to, let me take a step back and let me say it the opposite way. You don't build a house with no foundation.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got to have that foundation before you go into buying a property, because if you don't, shit can crumble real fast. And it's only going to crumble right on top of you, because now the responsibility is yours. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, I hear you.
And so
that's really good.
It's one of those things where it's like, be ready for that. And I think it applies to literally every other place in life. I mean, it's just like, it's not even like that unique to home ownership. It's cars, it's relationships. It's have stability, have foundation before you look to build. And until you have that, it's only going to make it that much harder to be able to accomplish your dreams. Sometimes people got to take a couple steps back mentally so that they can take that big leap forward. I think once they do make that big leap forward, though, they're going to be all the better for it, especially if they're ready for it. And again, like, I do this because I experience, I mean, at first it was just like, hey, how can I make a couple extra bucks? But now I'm starting to get into the process of like, oh man, like, there's people who are immigrating to this country. And I mean, for almost every single closed up property with has been an immigrant of some sort. Not even like, and you would think it'd be like, oh, me helping like another Latino, but it's like all types of different demographics of people that are coming from different places. And they don't understand a lot of things. They don't understand a lot of concepts. The language barrier is going to provide a huge obstacle for anybody. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. The cultural barrier is going to create a huge obstacle for anybody. It doesn't matter how capable you are. And so now I realize, you know what? There's a lot of people who are just shitty, man. There's a lot of agents that are sharks. And this is not new information. This is people usually associate realtors, agents as kind of like slimy people.
Oh, really?
That's been my experience, at least. And that's what I was hearing going into the industry before I was even in there. And then I get to experience it for myself, and I get to see people doing sly, slick shit. And it's just like, man, you know what? I want to be a face that represents something else other than that within this industry. And just be somebody who is genuinely helpful and truthful and is actually looking out for the best interests of the people that I'm representing. And because I don't have that, like I said before, that huge motivation for monetary gains, I never feel the need to put pressure on myself, to put pressure on other people to make something happen if they're not ready for it. And it's led to me developing really good relationships within this industry because people have trusted me because I've been honest with them. And when I don't know something, I tell them I don't know something, but I'll figure it out for them. And when I tell them that, you know what, hey, I really don't think this is in your best interest, even though it might seem like it is now. It might be a prettier situation, but it might not work out long term. It might just be really pretty for now. I've had, that honesty there, even if it might be to my own financial detriment, meaning that I might have missed out on an opportunity to make some money because I told them to pull out of the deal that would have made me money. But it's because I'm just not motivated by that externally or internally that it's allowed me to, again, represent something a little bit more genuine in an industry that's, pretty surface level, pretty shallow, and pretty
kind of like next person to the door. I mean, that's sales.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's almost all my jobs are sales. Really, now that I think about it, but it applies to training too. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, I just really want to be honest because that's the world that I personally want to live in. I want to live in a world that's honest. And so if I can be, contributing factor to that, I think that, I can look at myself and never feel like an imposter. I can look at myself and never be ashamed.
You can also just be honest with yourself too. Yeah. I mean, because I also am in sales and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, financially this doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah.
There are other options.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we want you to come here, but if affording $10 a month is what you can, and you're still being able to move your body and get to a gym and make yourself healthier, go for it.
Oh, and I've worked at Planet Fitness for like 3-4 years, maybe 5 years before I worked at the WAC. And those are two very stark price points, man.
I've had memberships at both.
And those are very different price points, man. So like it's, I'm hearing you and I'm with you on that, working out is a privilege, and wherever you can do it, where it makes the most, it's supposed to be something that helps you, not hurts you.
Yeah.
It's supposed to relieve stress, not add stress to your life. I'm with you on that. And I'm glad that you feel the importance of doing that as well, being honest and of giving people the opportunity to do what's best for them.
Well, because you're either going to cancel next month or the month.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are you are a personal trainer at the Wisconsin Athletic Club. We're coworkers. We're coworkers. We are at the Wisconsin Athletic Club in West Dallas. If you have questions, stop on by. Yeah. Personal trainer there. And I am in sales there. Member services. I'm more of a member service. Like I am truly services kind of guy. You're here. Yeah. Cherry Home Realty.
Yeah.
Did we really say the T? Realty. Real.
You do if you want to sound
realty.
Like more fancy.
Yeah. Okay. Say less. And then
no, but I will. That's how I will answer the phone though. Like I'll just be like Christian Rivera, Cherry Home Realty. So I mean, if we're being honest, that is constantly what I refer to it as.
Okay.
Yeah, you could just say Cherry Home. It does sound so homey, doesn't it? It just sounds so comfortable, like and so like tangible. Like it's like, oh, like that just feels like something my uncle could run. And you know what I mean? Like my broker boss, whatever you'd like to title him as, he really does feel like a family member. You know what I mean? To a certain extent, like or a family friend, just because it does feel like a team here. And I think that like small, tight-knit community type business is always better for fostering that type of feeling.
Well, who are the realtors here? Is it a family owned?
No, it's not. No, yeah. So but it's pretty cool to be able to feel like I can call this person anytime, like I would call a family member. Yeah. And they would answer and they would help. And yeah, I feel like I can trust and rely on them. I think that's like a huge privilege. I mean, because you could work at a different brokerage where it's a little bit more corporate feel. And I won't say anybody's name in particular, but there are going to be some brokerages that don't have the same feel. Don't have the homey, don't have the cozy, don't have the reliable, doesn't have the community feel to it. And so, yeah, no, it's been nice working here thus far, and it's never taken away from anything else that I've done, and it's only helped me be able to do the things that I love more. I do look at it as like a great opportunity to develop myself and establish myself financially on top of being able to help people as well.
I get that for you. So we'll move into this. So at the end is like dessert. It's like the icing on the cake kind of moment. Share a word of advice or support. I mean, you dropped a lot of nuggets. You dropped a lot of nuggets in this episode. Word of encouragement, support, tip. Got a lot of questions coming your way.
That's okay.
Yes. For the listeners.
Word of encouragement. Yeah. You know what? Let me really take a second to think about that. I think my words of encouragement are, and this is something that I'm honestly kind of telling myself at the same time, just because, I feel like we're always going through it to a certain extent, whether it's really at the forefront of our minds or it's at the back of our minds, and, it's just kind of like lingering there. You're never really alone on anything you're going through, I think. Sometimes it's just like when, like, I feel like something that like Tony Robbins said, and I don't even know how I feel about Tony Robbins. I don't know how anybody else feels about Tony Robbins, but he did say this thing that resonated with me, and is that, if we're looking around this room right now and I told you to look for the color red, you probably could find a whole bunch of things that are the color red. You might even make up something that's not really red, but it's just kind of quite red.
It's in the family.
Because so you can win. You could find every bit of red that's possible, right? Now, if I told you after looking for red to look for brown, you would be like, oh, I wasn't looking for brown. I was looking for red. And if you're looking for negativity, if you're looking for shittiness in people and the dark side of people and people's bad ends or bad days, you're going to find that shit. And so whenever you're feeling lonely, it's really important that you try your best, even as hard as it is for me, to look for the positives and things, to look for the people who you can rely on, to look for the people who are there, to think of yourself as a have, not a have not. When you look for something, you'll always find it. I think that if anybody's ever feeling alone with something, that they're not really, because even the people who might be the biggest contributors to them feeling lonely might be feeling lonely themselves. If you want to find something good in the world, if you look for something, you will find it. And you will find those people, you will find those feelings, you will find those emotions. And so I think that you're never really alone. And if you are feeling alone, look to not feel that way. Look for the beauty in life, and you will definitely find it.
Yeah. And even if it's just for a season of time, you are never alone. I love that. And again, it's just like affirming for me. There are people out there who do feel like that. And if we can make a note, a mental, physical note to every once in a while reach out to somebody, you're like, hey, you're just on my mind today. You're on my heart today. Just want to say, hey, like that means a lot to folks. And you never know when they are feeling alone. No. And it's a good reminder to like, okay.
Yeah. And I think it's important too. It's important to not take it personally when somebody is going through some bullshit and they might be coming off colder, or they might be coming off like less available and less accessible, because, you know, their mind is so preoccupied. It's important to not take it personally either. And, you know, if they do hit you with something, if you can tell that it's not coming from anything that's based in reality, it's not coming from anything that's like actually happening between you and that person, it's important to be able to take it on the chin and be like, you know what, well, I'm gonna, if whether you're religious or not, I'm just going to pray for that person. I'm going to think for that person, you know, and hope things get better for them. And as long as you're somebody who's not making it harder on them, you're doing your part. You really are. Yeah. If you can tell somebody's going through something, try your best to just not be one more reason why shit's fucking tough for them right now.
I don't need any money else stepping on my foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Okay. Dessert is like, it's like the best, heaviest thing of the episode.
For sure.
It's just, okay. So, we mentioned we are at the Wisconsin Athletic Club in West Dallas. You're here. Is there a specific way that folks can get in touch with you? Do you have something coming up that folks can be reaching out or following?
Yeah. Well, I mean, email, for both companies is really pretty similar. C. Rivera at Cherry Home Realty and C. Rivera at thewack.com. Those are both places you can reach out for me for any inquiries, whether that be for training or whether that be for buying or listing a property. I am always available. I am always going to make myself available for certain things to a certain extent. Obviously, I talked about, you know, setting some days and setting some times for myself, but I've accepted the trade-off of the freedom and the independence that I've, you know, adopted in my life also comes with needing to be a lot more available and a lot more flexible and a lot more responsible. So yeah, I'm definitely taking on anybody who needs help in any of those areas. Will do my best to provide that help with the best quality that I possibly can.
So you can see that below. Okay, I guess it's the final sip. And that is just like the last little cherry on top. There's like one word or sentence.
Man, this is what I'll say. You know, I'm going to say this. You know, it's really important, especially in the line of work that we're both in, to just always be open-minded and receptive of everybody. I can tell you what, in the industries that I work in, it's very rare that I meet somebody. I'm kind of almost going to turn this on to you, and I don't mean to do that, but at the same time, it's like, it feels only right that it's very infrequent and rare that I find somebody who's genuine, that I resonate with, that when I look at this person, you specifically, Savion, that I'm like, oh, that's a real person. That's a real human being. And I could tell that when I'm looking at them, they're almost living in the same world that I am. It doesn't feel like I'm talking to an alien, or I'm talking to a robot, or I'm talking to just a nameless face. You know how, you know, kids will say NPC, you know what I'm saying? It's very rare that I find somebody where I'm like, oh, that's a real person. And that's somebody who I can leave work and I wouldn't mind seeing them outside of work. You know, it wouldn't be like, oh shit, hey, how you doing? You know, it's like oh, they're Savion, man. That's awesome. And so keep an eye out for people like that. Never be closed-minded to anybody for any specific reason, because you never know who people are. and you never know how close to you they can be without actually being close to you. They could be just like you, and you would have no idea unless you just gave them a chance and you just talked to them. I appreciate the ability to have this experience and to be able to have somebody who's willing to listen. I appreciate the ability to listen to what you have to say and contribute as well. You know, it's not something that I often find with a lot of people. Most of the time, conversations feel very socially draining and emotionally draining for me. And they feel like they take away from my battery. Today felt like it filled up my battery. And so I appreciate this opportunity, this experience, and hope to maybe one day do it again in a different way.
Absolutely. Christian Rivera, everybody. Remember, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. I'll catch you in the next episode. Go in peace.